All righty, can you guys hear me? Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I almost forgot it was Tuesday. Um, Thank you guys for joining us this morning. Hopefully your morning is going well so far. For those of you that had a 3-day weekend, we hope you had a restful 3-day weekend. And we're very appreciative of your time in joining us today for our workshop, Understanding Depression in Children and Teens. My name is Will Safotu, and I am a school counselor here with the Family Resource Centers in the downtown central region. I am joined by my esteemed colleagues, Kim Yeremia, who is also a school counselor, and our school psychologist, Roxy Carboni. We make up the team here at the Family Resource Centers in our downtown central region. We are fortunate to be joined by our good friend, Julie Turvey, who works for ChildNet Youth and Family Services. For those of you that have been on our previous workshops, webinar videos, Julie is our resident presenter. And, we are very fortunate to have her and Nancy help us and our families in our school communities in Long Beach. This is the second of a 3-part series. Our last one was Understanding Anxiety in Children and Teens. And I also wanted to just remind you that if you are trying to turn your mic on or your camera on, you are unable to, simply for the fact that we are recording today's session so that we can share at a future date for our parents and our friends that weren't able to join us today. So please utilize the chat function. If you want to ask any questions or if there's anything that you want to say, please feel free to use the chat and we will monitor the chat. Aside from that, Julie, I wanted to thank you for being with us today. Again, thank you, everyone. Hopefully you take something away from this wonderful presentation. Julie, the floor is yours.
Good morning, or yes, almost afternoon. Good late morning. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you're here. Thank you for Long Beach Unified and for the Family Resource Centers for organizing this event and putting this together. I hope you all had a wonderful 3-day weekend, and just wanted to say thank you to Will and Kim and Roxanne for being part of this and supporting these education workshops that we provide for families. So we're so glad you're here. I know all of you are, I'm sure, are busy and have busy schedules, and we're just so happy that you're taking time to learn about mental health concerns in youth and children. So as we said, my name is Julie Turvey. I am a licensed MFT, which is a marriage family therapist. I have been with ChildNet for 17 years, and I have been providing therapy to youth in the Long Beach area for over 20 years. I worked at a teen runaway shelter for a year, and as a social worker in foster care and in several different areas. And during that time, started to become passionate about parent education, because I noticed that parents really do love their children, but sometimes they're not sure how to navigate the challenging process of mental health concerns or behavior issues. And so we're here to help you learn some strategies and maybe learn a couple tools today, and also provide some education. So we're so glad that you're here. And if you could, please put in the chat box where your name, if you're comfortable with that, and where you heard about our workshop from. If it's from a school district, perhaps what school, and or a parent, or from the community, or maybe even a social media outlet. It's always great to see where our participants are from. And as Will shared, sorry, we don't have video and audio, just in the interest of sharing this later to other people in confidentiality. So, but if you could put in the chat box, that would be wonderful to see where everybody is from. And I'm going to start to move forward. We have kind of a lot of information to cover in about an hour. So hopefully I tend to talk kind of quick, so I will try to slow down. Alrighty, so let's look in the chat real quick if people are able to enter in the chat box what schools they're from. That would be great to see. All right, so our goal today, hopefully at the end of this presentation, you will be able to identify when individuals or youth need to seek treatment for depression. You will have a good idea of understanding the common depression disorders in children and teens, and then also what you can do as parents to help. Now, I do want to preface this with, you're going to get some great information about depression disorders, but the only people that truly make these diagnoses will be a doctor or pediatrician or a therapist, social worker, licensed school psychologist. There's licensed professionals that do give official diagnoses. So the main goal is for you to have a really great idea of when you should seek treatment. All right, so I would love to hear from you all if you think that sadness in children has increased during this pandemic that we're going through. I know we're going through, gosh, almost a year of distance learning and this pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, and we know that mental health symptoms have increased. And I would love to hear if you could enter in the chat box, if you're able to do that, if you think that sadness has increased, and if so, why? I'll wait for a response. Well, I'm not seeing anything in the chat box, so I'm not sure if I'm not able to have access, or maybe people are mostly listening and aren't able to write in the chat.
There are people writing in the chat.
Okay.
Some have responded that the reason is because of lack of freedom and socialization, separation from kids and other kids, a lot of social isolation, lack of social interaction, stress, social anxiety due to the virus. Yeah, students are away from their daily routines and away from their friends. So those are some of the responses in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. That's really helpful. Yes, I would say yes to all of those things. I think we're all going through something we have never been through before. And even pretty high functioning people are having challenges because we've never been through something like this and we're not quite sure how to navigate it. So add to that being a child, maybe not being quite as in control of what happens in your environment. That sadness can get worse during things like a pandemic where there's a lot more isolation. So yes, we're seeing around a 30% increase in overall mental health conditions. I'm not sure exactly how much of that is just specifically depression, but I do know that our agency and other agencies have seen higher risk clients coming through with more serious depression concerns. Thank you for sharing that, everybody. I really appreciate seeing your feedback. And either Kim or Will or whoever, if there's anything important in the chat box that you want to let me know about, feel free to interrupt or shout that out if you need to. All right, so why is diagnosing depression important? Why are we talking about this today? Suicide is actually the third leading cause of death for teens. We know that teens are, in general, can be a little more of risk takers, and they may follow through on thoughts that they have. And so suicide is actually a cause of death, and we do want to reduce that. Depression does not go away if it's ignored. I know sometimes people feel like, if I just, it's just a phase, they're going to ride this out. They're just moody. They're just a teen. Yes, that can be developmentally normal for teens to be a little more moody, and we'll go into why that's true. But in general, real serious depression doesn't go away if we ignore it. In general, it tends to get worse. So that early intervention is key. we want to try to intervene before it gets to that suicide attempt. We want to try to intervene early as possible. And then when youth are depressed, it can cause other areas of their life to suffer, like going to school, maybe showing up for that distance learning, maybe attending family events that they normally like to go to. We know that if someone's depressed, it can cause a lot of other areas of their life to suffer. And approximately 1 in 4 adolescents have a mental health condition. This is not something that's really rare. Around 12% have depressive disorders, and the median onset is around 13 years old. And if you guys have questions about any of that, again, feel free to put in the chat box. I wish I could see all of you and interact with you, but at least we have this way of seeing each other, which is good. So I just wanted to start by saying that not all sadness is depression. Sadness is a normal and healthy human emotion. And many times it's a normal reaction to very sad things that are happening around us. So I think as we learn to navigate that, just in general, the human experience is really hard sometimes, and that sadness is part of it. And learning to deal with that sadness in a way that's healthy and helps you cope with your current circumstances, it's okay. So again, teens sometimes, youth sometimes can be a little moody, and that can be really normal, but not all sadness is depression. So I don't want you to think, oh gosh, my teen's sad. This means that they have, they have depression. We'll go into the different types of depression and then when to actually seek treatment. So just because we're sad, that's okay. There's a lot of circumstances that is normal that we should feel sad in that situation. So what is depression? Depression is the cluster of symptoms created when there's a neurochemical imbalance in the brain. Well, what causes this? It can be a lot of different factors. It can be biological, it could be hereditary, basically. It can be an environmental condition, something really challenging has happened, like a death in your family, or you've lost someone that you really care about, or you've gone through a really challenging breakup. There's a lot of environmental conditions that can happen that cause you to feel sad, that are completely out of your control. And then we also have physical reasons, emotional, cognitive, which is any kind of thought processes, or a combination of all of those. Sometimes there's the biological and things happening in the environment, and then all of those come together to create what's actually a brain disorder. So if you look at this brain scan here, if you can see on the slide, we have a healthy brain that has the frontal cortex, the blood flow is working well there. And then we have in chronic depression, that frontal cortex, that blood flow isn't happening the way it's supposed to. And I won't go into all the details of that, but if I just wanted to have that visual so that you could see that this is a brain condition. So I think a lot of the stigma with mental health is we think, oh, it's just a mood thing. We can get over it. It'll pass. But the chemistry in our brain is actually different. And so if left untreated, that can continue to get worse. And I'm hoping with these types of workshops that people can seek treatment when needed. Let me fast forward here. Okay. All right, so what is depression? In general, these are some general symptoms. And again, as I was sharing earlier, just because someone has sadness doesn't mean that they have depression. So what we look for is some of these signs. And in general, at least 5 of these symptoms need to qualify for a diagnosis. And we'll get into which diagnoses there are. Things like persistent sadness and irritability, lack of motivation, hopelessness, preoccupation with death or dying, that really low self-esteem or feelings of worthlessness, loss of interest in previously enjoyed activities, changes in appetite or eating, so either eating a lot more or not eating at all, changes in sleeping patterns, difficulty concentrating, consistent and strong anger and rage, headaches or stomach aches, physical pains with no cause. That can also be from other things like anxiety, but that can also be a depression symptom. Just overall changes in activity level. The child either becomes more lethargic or maybe more hyperactive. And then those recurring thoughts of death or suicide. So usually at least 5 of these symptoms, though if it's those thoughts of death with a plan, we definitely want to seek treatment. So in children and teens, there are 4 types of depressive disorders, and we'll go into each one of these quickly. Again, it's not meant to be too specific because we know a doctor does need to make the actual diagnosis, but to give you a great idea of some of the general ones out there. All right, so the first one is disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, or DMDD, as some of us refer to it. So this is a depression diagnosis where it's mostly an angry mood or an irritable mood most of the day and nearly all day. So, you know, some of us feel irritable or angry at certain times, but this is all day, pretty much every day. They might have severe temper outbursts, and these need to be an average of 3 or more times per week. And that's out of keeping with the situation and the developmental level. So yes, some of us get really upset when something challenging is happening, but depending on, you know, how you have to, that's where the professional kind of looks at, is this a normal reaction to something really hard happening? And is this happening very frequently? They often have trouble functioning due to that irritability, and it needs to be in more than one place. So not just at home or not just at school or just with their peers, but in multiple settings. And then to be diagnosed with this condition, they have to have these symptoms for at least 12 months. And then we have major depressive disorder. This is a little more rare, but it's a very serious condition. It actually happens only in about 2 to 3% of children under age 10, but then between the ages of 10 and 14, the rate increases to 5 to 8%. So this condition is when they have very severe episodes of depression, typically lasting around 7 to 9 months. It can include things like academic decline, withdrawing from friends and family, thoughts or actions of self-harm, loss of interest. And normally maybe they love to go to the park with friends, but now they don't want to do even the things that they used to enjoy doing. They're not sleeping well. Again, those appetite and weight changes, feelings of guilt or being misunderstood, and just unexplained crying, like they cry a lot and they can't really even explain why they're crying. And again, you know, the human condition is so diverse. So these are general descriptions, but we know that everybody's different. And the goal is not to diagnose people, but just to be able to describe the different types of conditions that youth experience. All right, another one is called persistent depressive disorder. And it used to be called dysthymia. And this is a more mild condition. It generally needs to be present though for at least 2 years. So these are children that have a general sad mood, but they're still functioning pretty well. They can go to school, they get along with other people, but just overall, you notice that they are very sad most of the time. You don't really see them smiling a lot. You don't see them happy and joyful very often. And sometimes they can be confused with kids that are just shy or more introverted, and that would not be persistent depressive disorder. These are youth that don't necessarily have, you know, suicidal ideation or things like that, but they just in general have that sad mood. So the rate in children is around 3%, not a lot, but often if left untreated, it can go on to become a little more serious, like other more serious disorders. And then we have what you guys might have heard of before. It's called bipolar disorder. And this is where there's more high and low mood swings. So periods of extreme sadness and then periods of extreme energy and happiness. The onset for this disorder is typically late adolescence or even early adulthood, but it can occur in young children. It might look a little bit different. It can occasionally occur in children as low as age 9, but it may show up a little more like irritability, some psychomotor agitation, which means the way they move their body just seems really agitated. It can be repetitive movements, some paranoia, and some psychotic symptoms. So people that do develop bipolar disorder later on often had some symptoms as a young child that maybe didn't get caught. So again, that early intervention is really key to keep an eye on that. So we have those, sometimes you can look for that overly excited state, risk-taking, ability to function on little sleep, racing thoughts, fast or loud talking, disorganization, and that exaggerated sense of abilities or accomplishments. So when they're saying things, just don't really make sense of what they're able to do, that might be a sign to have an evaluation for bipolar disorder. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put that in the chat box. Kim, I don't know if you would like to, if there's anything important at this point you would like to share from the chat, or should we keep moving forward?
We are keeping track to see if there are any questions. So far, we haven't seen any questions in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so why is depression so common in teens? We know their biology, their hormonal changes are happening, big changes in their body. There tends to be increased levels of stress on teens because we're kind of thinking of them as adults, but not quite adults. So they have that increased level of adult responsibilities, but maybe not that actual level of freedom that they would like. So that causes extra stress. We have sleep disturbances. I know teens tend to sleep longer. They actually do need more sleep than their typical younger peers. But, sometimes teens are staying up late and not getting enough sleep, and then that can affect their mood. And then also those academic pressures can be really high right now. I have two children that are in their 20s, and I know the academic pressures were really strong for them in those middle school and high school years. So that can feel really overwhelming for them if they don't know how to cope with some of those pressures. And then many teens are starting to use substances to cope with their anxiety and depression. So that can actually exacerbate the concern by that increased alcohol use, and different drugs might really be more harmful to them in order to try to manage those sad or painful feelings. So when should we be concerned? So in general, if regarding depression, when the symptoms are more than 2 weeks, if they have a plan for death, and that's not just, gosh, sometimes I want to die. This is, I want to die and I have a plan for how I'm going to do it. And I do want to preface this that some of these topics are fairly heavy, and if you have any kind of, the topic is painful, feel free to take a break or walk away from the workshop for a minute if it brings up any kind of challenges for you. I know that sometimes in the mental health world, we're kind of used to talking about these very serious conditions, but I do want to be sensitive that these could be hard to listen to as well. But so again, if they have a plan for death, and if there's a means to the plan, so say for example, they say they want to use a gun for hurting themselves, but they do not have access to a gun. and you know that for sure, then that's one thing to consider. But if you know that there's a plan they have that they do have access to, that's very serious. And then just anytime they talk about hurting themselves, we want to take that seriously. We do know that most youth that do attempt suicide have talked about it beforehand, and it's very important that we respond with concern. And we will get to what parents can do and how we can support these youth. So again, this 2 weeks, if someone's gone through a breakup, or they've had a death of a family member, or they've gone through something really hard and they're really sad, that's very normal, and that's understandable for what they're going through. But if the symptoms seem to be getting worse, they're not able to get out of bed, they're not functioning, they're not eating, they're not sleeping, and that's been going on for more than 2 weeks, and you see it getting worse, it's a good idea to reach out for support. All right, so there's lots of treatment options, lots of things we can do. This disorder is treatable. It may not be in 100% of cases, but as we will see here, that there's a lot of things we can do to support youth and teens. So we have therapy, there's medication choices, and also complementary approaches. I'm going to go into these in a little more detail. So the complementary these are things besides therapy and medication that anyone can do to try to improve their mood. So we do know that exercise is a great mood booster. So if you can even start by taking a 10 or 20-minute walk per day, just get outside, that's really going to shift your mood. I know some days that's easier than others, but exercise in some studies has been shown to be as effective as antidepressants. And exercise is a really great way to get that blood flow to the brain. Remember, we saw earlier that blood flow wasn't happening. So, and when we walk, we're actually, when we use our left and our right legs, that's actually activating each side of the brain, which gets the brain functioning better. We do know that sleep really improves our mood. And if we're not getting enough sleep, it does change our thought process. So please, if possible, try to get that 8 hours, try to really prioritize your sleep in order to function the next day. There's lots of other great tools like prayer, meditation, mindfulness. If you're part of a faith community, or if not, there's lots of great tools on YouTube. And even just taking 5 or 10 minutes to kind of let go of those concerns to a higher power, kind of take that weight off your shoulders, that can be a really great tool to just kind of get our mind off what our current worries are. There's also lots of great guided visualizations and relaxation tools. What this is using the power of our brains to take us somewhere that is more relaxing. So we know not every day we get to go to a beautiful beach and be on vacation, but we can go there in our mind. We can take that opportunity to visualize somewhere beautiful, visualize somewhere that is a relaxing place for us. So in therapy, we often have clients choose what is a safe place for them to visualize as they learn coping skills. So this can also be a great tool to get our minds off those sad thoughts. We do know that exposure to nature is really important. We need that sunlight. We need to be exposed to green environments. I know it's easier for some of us than others, but if possible, try to get to a park, try to get somewhere where you can take a little hike or a walk. Any type of exposure to that water and the green around you really can help your mood. Acupuncture is a really great treatment too that's been around thousands of years that can be really helpful for improving your mood. There's also herbal supplements and ways that natural vitamins and minerals can help improve how we feel. We could do a whole segment just on that, but we won't because we do have kind of a lot to cover today, but that can be a great way to help improve mood. Our diets definitely affect how we feel. And we know what we eat does impact those feelings. And then there's lots of great free phone apps, things like the virtual hope box. That one is really great. That's for actually, it started as one for PTSD victims or those with PTSD symptoms, but they've noticed that it's really helpful right now during the pandemic to provide that hope that's needed. Sometimes people don't feel comfortable reaching out to someone, but they'll go on an app to try to remember some coping skills. Another one is My3, that's a great one, and also the mood meter. That also helps you identify what mood are you in, and then how can we help you to improve that mood. So a quick study I just wanted to throw out here, showing some different ideas about what works best for treatment. This study was from 2014, and they studied 439 youth ages 12 to 17, and they did this over 13 different sites, and it was randomized into 4 different groups. One group had therapy only, cognitive behavioral therapy. One group had medication only, which is SSRI's selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And then one group was a combination of both therapy and medication. And then we had the placebo group. So what they found in this study was that the most effective for the treatment of the depression symptoms was the combination group, which was a combination of therapy and medication. The second most effective was the medication only. Therapy was third, and then fourth was the placebo. They found that they had a 71% response rate for the combination, which I think is pretty high. That means a 71% improvement with both medication and therapy. And then we had about 60% for therapy alone, 43% for, 60% for medication alone, and then 43% for just therapy, and then 38% for the placebo. So we're not recommending that everyone should get medication or needs medication, but we wanted to show you that study that shows it's a pretty big study of a lot of youth to see which one for that group was the most helpful. I know at ChildNet, we always start with therapy first. Most children don't need medication, but there are some with more serious conditions that do need that referral to our child psychiatrist. So I do think it is important to develop a relationship with a good child psychiatrist or with your pediatrician to evaluate if that's necessary. I know as a therapist, I often would sit in consults with our psychiatrists, and a good psychiatrist knows when medication isn't needed and when it's just therapy, and other times when they know that medication can be really helpful. So I know for myself, I saw firsthand how medication really helped improve a lot of the lives of youth. And also that there were many times that I brought youth to our doctors and they said, nope, they don't need medication. So I think it is developing that trust with your doctor that and finding the right doctor that's a good fit for your child, and having those really honest conversations about what are the side effects, what are the benefits, how can this help improve their life, and communicating about any kind of side effects or concerns about that, because good doctors really do want that health and happiness for your child. All right, so despite us knowing that this disorder can be treatable, unfortunately, only 21% of adolescents with mental health disorders actually receive treatment. So there's a lot of youth that need support but aren't getting it. And there could be a lot of reasons why this is true. I know there's just stigma in general with any kind of mental health treatment. So I know for myself included, I really try to educate people that I'm a therapist. I go to therapy when I need it. It's a really great tool to help us to cope with challenging situations in our life. So hopefully with different types of trainings and spreading the word, I think it's up to all of us. We can help reduce that stigma. And then when someone is depressed, obviously, if it's hard for them to get out of bed, it might be hard for them to seek treatment. So we know that that's a challenge. And then also access to treatment. Sometimes people need the help, but they don't know where to go, or maybe they don't have insurance, or they need that support to be linked to treatment. So what can parents do? I'm going to stop the share really quick because I did want to share a quick video. And sorry, Will, this was a quick change from our, he embedded a great video for me that we'll show later, but I wanted to actually include this one that is really helpful. Excuse me one sec here. So I don't know if any of you have heard of Kevin Hines. I actually had the opportunity to hear him speak at a CCEJ event, and he had bipolar disorder and overcame a suicide attempt. And his story is very powerful about hope and about seeking treatment, and that even if someone has a depression condition, that they can have a really great life. So I wanted to include his video, and let me know, Kim or Will, if you can't hear it once I start the play button. It'll be about 5 minutes, and I'll go ahead and share the screen here.
Sounds good, Julie.
The day was
We can hear the sound.
25th of the year 2000. I was 19, and I came to a place in such immeasurable mental instability that I believed I had to die by my hands. I felt like I was a burden to everyone around me, and I felt that they all hated me and wanted me to die. I wish I asked them if that was the case. They would have all told me otherwise. The night of the 24th, the night before my attempt, I was sitting at my desk writing a note to my mom and dad, and I basically told them in the note how much I loved them. What I couldn't recognize was that I had value. I would find purpose. I would have hope again, but I couldn't see it back then. And at 6 in the morning, I entered my dad's room, and he looked at me and he goes, "Kevin, what's wrong?" And I desperately wanted to tell him the truth. I never wanted to take my life that day. I believed I had to. And those are two categorically different things. And eventually I convinced my dad that morning that I was fine, knowing full well that I was going to the Golden Gate and I was going to die. He turned to me and he said one of his favorite things, "Kevin, I love you, be careful." And that moment is etched in my brain. When I speak on it, I can see my dad driving away. And thinking to myself, that's the last time I'll ever see anybody I love, and the last time anybody I love will ever see me, and being content to die by my hands. Irrational and logical thought come to mind when you think of suicide ideation, not rational and logical thought. And so I didn't know that back then. And I left English class early, and I got on a muni train, and I began to yell aloud after I'm crying my eyes out on a crowded bus filled with people. And I yelled, "Leave me alone." And now, if no one else was, 100 people are looking down the barrel of the bus at me and saying nothing. And that, I think, is what's wrong with some of our society. Our innate human ability to see somebody, anybody, in the greatest lethal emotional pain they've ever experienced, but feel nothing for them but fear of them and apathy toward them. We're supposed to be here to give back to other people. But the bus got to the Golden Gate Bridge and everybody got off, and I was the last person on the bus, and I walked onto the span on the walkway of the Golden Gate, and I paced back and forth for 40 minutes, and that's when a woman from my left approached me, and she had blonde curly hair and big sunglasses, and she said, "Excuse me, will you take my picture?" And I remember laughing inside, like, it's kind of bad timing. But I took her picture, and she took her camera, and she walked away. And at that moment, I thought, absolutely nobody cares. But it was the furthest thing from the truth. Everybody cared. I fell 220 feet, 25 stories at 75 miles an hour in 4 seconds. I prayed on the way, what have I just done? I don't want to die. God, please save me. I hit the water. I go down 70 feet. I swim 70 feet to the surface without the use of my legs, as fast as I've ever swum in my life, in one breath, praying the entire way, God, please save me. I don't want to die. I made a mistake. I broke the surface. God, please save me. I don't want to die. I made a mistake. Bobbed up and down in the water. God, please save me. I don't want to die. I made a mistake. I can't die here. If I die here, no one will ever know I didn't want to. No one will ever know I knew I made a mistake. And that's when a creature began to circle beneath me. And no longer am I wading in the water to stay afloat. I'm lying on top of my back, being kept buoyant by this creature, thinking to myself, this is one hell of a nice shark. It turns out I was on a show a year later called Primetime Live with John Quinones. A guy called Morgan McWard writes into the show, and he goes, Kevin, I'm so very glad you're alive. I was standing less than 2 feet away from you when you jumped. Until this day, no one would tell me whether you lived or died. It's haunted me until right now. By the way, there was no shark, like you mentioned on the show, but there was a sea lion. And the people above looking down believed it to be keeping your body afloat until the Coast Guard boat arrived behind you. Frankly, had she not had me take her pictures for those 5 minutes, the creature that came to my aid in the water, that kept me afloat till the Coast Guard boat arrived behind me, would not have been in the location it was to save my life. That's my miracle. But that was just the first part of it. Of the 39 Golden Gate Bridge jump survivors, I was number 26 of 39 to survive that fall. 5 of us get the privilege to stand, walk, and run. It would be a really rough road for a really long time. I finally found the ability in my third psych ward stay to be self-aware with my disease. Now I know that no matter what I'm faced with, I will defeat it. And suicide will never be the solution to my problem. It is the problem. I have chronic thoughts of suicide that plague me. They'll never, ever take me. There's no way I'm going to take my life. I'm always going to ask for help. I would have missed the love of my life, Margaret Hines, marrying the woman of my dreams. I would have missed so much had I died by my hands or had I ever attempted to die again. I've been given the gift of a second chance. I'm grateful for every millisecond I get to walk this green earth. I wish I'd never jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, but here I am today to try to express to these kids that they have options and that they don't have to die, that they can thrive, but they got to be here to get there in the first place.
All right, so I know that's a pretty heavy topic, but I wanted to share his story because I think it's so powerful of what someone is thinking in the moment of wanting to die, and then their process and how they can have a better life. So love to hear in the chat box if you have any thoughts or any questions about that. You can look that up. It's free on YouTube, and that can be a nice video to show someone struggling, just for them to know they're not alone. All right, sorry, for some reason, Kim, I can't, whenever I click on the chat box, it's not letting me see what's in there. So if there's anything important, let me know.
No
all right,
problem,
so,
Julie.
Oh.
Just a few are saying, wow, so powerful, just wow. Just leaving us speechless, and it's definitely moving and bringing hope for sure. That's all I see right now for
Thank you.
the chat box. Thank you for sharing that. That was definitely an eye-opener.
Thank you. All right, so what can we do as parents? We know that, we can't control what anyone else does. We can only control ourselves, right? And I truly believe parents love their children and are doing their best. And these kinds of conditions are very challenging to deal with on a daily basis. And so I'm going to give you some ideas here, some tools. Some of these things you might already do, and other things might be a new idea. So number one is just thank them for telling you. If you're not quite sure what to say, just know that it takes so much courage for them to speak up. And I think just you letting them know that you're so glad that you told them. We want to try to not give advice or give judgment that how they're feeling is right or wrong, because how they're feeling is true to them. We may not understand, or it may not make sense to us, but we want to try to avoid that judgment if possible. So, and just know that this is a real condition. It's not all in their head. They didn't make it up for attention. This is a very real condition that has real consequences. So we want to make sure that we can get that treatment for them. So one quick tool that we can do is to, this is called ROAR. And I like just using an acronym. Sometimes it's easier to remember, but often we were not taught how to process our emotions. And so especially for a child, when they have an uncomfortable emotion like sadness or anger or fear, they just hold it inside because they're not quite sure what to do with it, or they may not even know what they're feeling. So as a parent, you can kind of do what us therapists do, is we help teach youth how to manage their emotions that pop up for them. We know that many emotions are really uncomfortable and they are painful. And but if we use this tool, it can really help. So this process is, first we recognize, what are we feeling? Something is coming up. It's uncomfortable or it's painful. What actually might that be? We can pull up a feelings chart and am I confused? Am I angry? Am I sad? Am I fearful? Help identify. And then we observe that feeling without judgment. That means if we can take like a kind of a back up from ourselves, as if we were just observing ourselves from the outside, observe that feeling without judgment, that it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be fearful. We didn't choose that feeling, but just observe it without judgment, that it's okay. Then we're going to accept the feeling. Sometimes that's the hardest part, is we don't want to accept that we feel sad, or we don't want to accept that we feel worried or scared. But it's often the resistance to that feeling that makes it stay. The thing with feelings is once you actually name them and you allow them, they will eventually go away. But it's us denying them and pretending they don't exist, or maybe numbing them with other things, that they end up staying in our bodies. So eventually we're going to release the feeling. Sometimes that can happen right away. Other times it could be a couple hours, it could be a few days. But if we can observe and name that feeling, and also as a parent, if you can help your child navigate this process, maybe give them a hug and say, I understand that's how you're feeling. We don't want to push to release it. It may take longer than others, depending on what's going on. But this can be a nice tool to help us to process those challenging emotions. Another thing we can do is just educate them about depression symptoms. I think sometimes children feel like they're all alone, or no one else is having these same types of symptoms. But once they read what the different types of depression disorders are, they kind of feel like, oh, okay, this is not, other people have this, this is treatable, this isn't my fault, this is just something my brain is doing right now to cope with something really challenging. So, and then educating them about therapy also can be helpful. I know sometimes people have all kinds of crazy ideas about what therapy can be, but basically it's just around 1 hour with a caring, neutral person to talk about what's happening. And we're here to teach you some coping skills and how to manage these challenges that come up for us. Unfortunately, as therapists, we can't always take away all of the negative things happening, but we can help you learn how to cope with it in a way that you can still have a bright future. So, and therapy isn't supposed to last forever. It's there to help teach you the skills, and then so that you know how to cope with some of these challenges on your own. So I would say often with youth, try to problem solve together what would be the best next step. So telling someone what to do, it may not go over well. We sit down together and say, hey, I love you, I'm concerned, and we have some options on things we can do to help you get better. Let's make a list together and then choose what our next steps are. Now, of course, if someone is actively suicidal, and they have a means to complete that, we do want to call 911. We wouldn't just wait, but if it's something where not as serious, you can take that time to really sit down and create that list together. And then the teen can even sometimes call themselves, or you can call as a parent together. Another great tool to teach your children or just as parents is that about this cognitive triangle. So basically, our brains generate thousands of thoughts per hour, and not all of those thoughts are helpful, and not all of those thoughts are true. So I know when I heard this, I was kind of blown away, because I thought, gosh, I thought if I had the thought that it must be true. And kind of like he was sharing in the video that, he had a thought that no one loved him and the world would be better off without him. That thought wasn't true, but it felt very true to him. And that's what his brain was generating. So if possible, we want to think of, we can't stop those thoughts always, but if we can try to let them go by like they're on a conveyor belt, that can be a nice analogy that, oh, I observe I have this thought. I'm going to go ahead and let that one go by. Just know that that's my brain doing its job. Doesn't mean I have to act on that. So the cognitive triangle, we teach people in cognitive behavioral therapy about how a thought can affect an emotion. So if you think the world would be better off without you, then what emotion might you have about that? You'd feel very sad and hopeless. And then what kind of behavior would we do? Maybe we would try to take an action that would be harmful to us. So we help people to identify what are those unhelpful thoughts, and then how can we change those thoughts to a more positive or helpful thought that's more realistic. So we're going to get to the thought part again, but just a couple other ideas. One great tool, again, I wish we could always, fix things and help our child to feel better right away. Unfortunately, that's not always true. But a really nice thing to just help someone feel validated is just repeat back exactly what you heard them say without changing it. So you could just say, you're telling me that you're really sad that you switched schools. This is just an example. I understand, and it's okay to be sad about that. Just actually saying it out loud and acknowledging it, giving them a hug, can really help them feel heard and understood. Most of us don't want to be changed. We want to be understood, and we want to be accepted for where we're at. So giving that unconditional acceptance can really mean a lot, and honestly be life-saving for children. Being that role model of a positive life, providing that hope, again, we can't control what they're doing, but we can try to have that love and support and show them a good life ahead of them, hopefully. Again, that doesn't always work, but I know it's something that we can do ourselves to try to show them that life can get better. Letting them know we're here for you, letting them know that they're not alone is really important. Praising any kind of positive progress. Maybe they didn't shower for 4 days, but today they got up and showered. Just notice that, talk about it, praise them for that. Great job that you got up and showered today. I know you're going through a really hard time. I know that wasn't easy. I noticed that you're really trying today, and I'm really proud of you. We talked about how to identify and discuss feeling safely in that ROAR approach. And then what are the strengths that your child is doing right now? What are they good at? And how can we build on that? So in strength-based therapy, this is what we do. No matter what is wrong with someone or what they're struggling with, we can always find something that they are really good at. So what are they doing well? Maybe they are amazing at gardening or doing their nails, or maybe they're great with tech stuff. I don't know. And it could be anything, but I think trying to pull that out and build on that can really help your child feel like they do have that purpose. And then often we tell ourselves stories, checking the time, try to be quick here. We do tell ourselves stories sometimes that aren't always true, and we call these cognitive distortions. So for example, you are in the grocery store and you are paying for your food, and the grocery store clerk is not very friendly and maybe makes a comment, kind of a sarcastic comment to you. So what's the story you tell yourself about what just happened? Is it that, oh, she must be tired, she's had a long day, maybe her boss is not being the greatest, or is it, boy, she's being really rude to me, and you know, I must have done something that caused that? Or you know, there's lots of different stories that you could tell yourself about the exact same situation. And I won't go into all of these, but these are some ways that we can have cognitive distortions. Things like drawing a conclusion based on one event, personalizing everything. This is my fault. Maybe something really terrible happened and somehow we think it's our fault, even though it wasn't. Magnifying things. Maybe something small happened, but we're making it a really big deal. Minimizing is actually when something good actually happens, you're like, oh, that was just a fluke, instead of, no, I actually did a really great job on that. Another one is arbitrary inference. So that's like drawing a conclusion about something when there really isn't much facts or evidence about it. And then that overgeneralization. So making those sweep, like, my job's terrible, even if, you know, maybe 20% of the time it's not so great, but you're just making these overgeneralizations. So I think just being aware of those, knowing that we all do them, we can't always stop them, but I think the key is just to be aware and notice and try to change it when it does happen. So we know that that negative self-talk happens, things like, I'm not worthy, I can't do it, I'm not good enough, nobody loves me. And unfortunately, these happen, but what we can try to do is counteract those with positive affirmations. So a way that we can do this is by, you can either write out positive affirmations. I have some here, like, all is well, you are loved, you're the best, you're exactly where you're supposed to be, life is good and getting better every day. Sometimes I'll put them up on the fridge or the mirror, or I will listen to YouTube videos while I'm getting ready in the morning. And it's just a nice way to kind of counteract any kind of negative thoughts that your brain might be generating. And then if you can, as a family, try to make time for some play and some fun. I know that that connection for youth is really important. So even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, if you have young children, getting down on the floor and putting your phones away and playing a game, or asking them, what would you like to do together today? I'm giving you 10 minutes just for you. What would you like to do? Because I love you and you're so important to me. I know that we're all busy and we have a lot going on, but that connection can really mean a lot to them. So, and I know as teens, sometimes that gets a little harder. You feel like, gosh, I don't know if my teen really likes spending time with me. They love spending time with their friends, and that's great, but ask them. There might be something that you haven't thought of that would be really fun to do together. Also, maybe just going and, you know, sitting in their room with them, and without an agenda, without telling them what to do or telling them a chore or something, just saying, hey, I'm just hanging out to say hi and see how you're doing today. So those kind of moments can really mean a lot to kind of help them with these kind of conditions. So another key for reducing depression is making sure youth are connected to others. So we know that the high rates of loneliness in our society and the isolation really do contribute to depression. And I know it can be a little challenging with the pandemic, but how can youth feel like they're making a difference in the world? What is their skill, or what are they good at? How can they work together with other people to have a common mission? We do find that youth that serve in different ways in the community, whether it's at school or you know, serving someone less fortunate than them, can really, really boost mood. So again, maybe talk to your youth about areas that they might want to try to make a difference, because we know that that definitely helps improve their sense of purpose. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to play this today, but there's a great TED Talk by, his name is Johan Hari. His last name is spelled Hari. And he talks about that one way to combat depression is through that connection, through finding a greater purpose. So they had an example of a group of depressed patients that were required as part of their treatment. They had therapy and medication, but as part of their treatment, they had to meet twice a week and come up with a project to do together. And this was a group of depressed patients. So even though they all were hesitant and had struggles with even coming and were scared to kind of meet new people, they came up with a creative project that they did together where they created a community garden behind the clinic where they were going. And their rates of depression reduced significantly because they were outside, they had a common purpose, and they were making a difference together. And they were building those social connections that are so important right now. So if you get time, if you can listen to it, I'm sorry we won't get to today because I played that other one. We won't, but that's a really great one too. So
Hey, Julie, it's Will. Sorry. I just want to let everybody know I just posted the link to that video in the chat just so that they can save it for later.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And some other great resources for depression. We're just about done. Thanks, you guys. You can take a screenshot of this if you like, but there's lots of great local counseling agencies in Long Beach. Again, I work at ChildNet, and we do provide free counseling for youth ages 0 to 18 that have Medi-Cal insurance. And then also you can call your pediatrician. They are a great reference for assessing how severe it is and link you with referrals and resources. There's also the suicide hotline, the 1-800-273-8255. That's available 24/7. You can text or call. If it's a life-threatening condition, call 911. Don't hesitate to do that if you are concerned about a youth that is having immediate suicidal thoughts. Also, SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Act, their helpline has some great referrals as well. The National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is NAMI, is a great resource. We have a Long Beach chapter, and this is for families with, there's a lot of parents there, support groups for youth that have suicidal concerns or serious mental health concerns. They meet monthly for free, and they have great speakers. I highly recommend NAMI. They also have a great website as well. The National Institute of Mental Health, this is the phone number on here as well. The Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance Network, the 800 number is listed here. Again, if you want to take a screenshot of that. And then I also put the Kevin Hines video that I played today. His book is called Cracked, Not Broken. He has his own YouTube channel as well that can be helpful for showing to youth. And then of course, the ChildNet, our phone number, our clinicians we have about 80 clinicians serving the Long Beach area, and our intake staff is there Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. So if you want, you can just call our main number there and refer a youth in need. And then we also have Department of Mental Health has a great access hotline for LA County, which is the 1-800-854-7771. And we do call that, our therapists call that number when we have a youth with suicidal or homicidal thoughts. And then I also wanted to throw out this California Parent Helpline number, which was just started during the pandemic. So the phone number is 1-855, the number 4, letter A, and then the word parent. That hotline also could be a great resource if, as a parent, you just need some support and to talk to someone and there's no one available. You're feeling like hurting your child, or you're feeling really discouraged and hopeless, you can call that number as well. So thank you so much, everyone. I believe Will is going to stop the recording so we can do chat questions. I'm not sure if I have that exactly right, but thanks
No,
so much, you guys.
no, that's okay. If it's okay with you, Julie, I did have a couple questions emailed to me and then private
Okay.
message to me. If we can just go through that now.
Great.
I'll
Yes.
still keep the recording on, only because the parent that emailed me is unable to attend the meeting. But she wanted to know if I could ask the question for her.
Okay.
Her first question was, what are key indicators to depression? I do believe you covered it in the first slide, but if you wanted to give maybe a quick answer. And then the second part to that was, is excessive passive phone use a sign of depression?
Let's see. Excessive passive phone use. I mean, we know that phone use is so common for youth now and adults. So I don't think it necessarily would be a sign of someone being depressed. We do want to make sure that there's opportunities for some real connection time during the day where, maybe even as a parent, you can say, hey, I'm so distracted by my phone and it is very entertaining, but let's go ahead and put both of our phones down for 10 minutes. Would that be okay with you? And just kind of connect with them, say hi and see how they're doing. And then also the first one, what are the symptoms? I think we did cover that, but I would just say that, yeah, if they've been depressed more than 2 weeks, if they talk about hurting themselves, they have a plan for hurting themselves, definitely you want to reach out for support.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. And then the last question that I received was, do you have any resources for effective supplements?
Oh, supplements. Okay. Honestly, no, I'm not an expert in that area, but I know that there are like holistic practitioners that do specialize in that. Some of the more stores like Lazy Acres and Whole Foods, some of them have representative in their vitamin or supplement section that can, if you tell them what conditions you're having or the child is having, they can lead you to that area that has different supplements for that.
Great. I just got another question, if you don't mind, Julie. Is sleeping until noon or later, is that a possible sign of depression or even just being sad?
Yes. So, I mean, and speaking as a mom of having teens, they would often sleep late. So, and sometimes their sleep schedules are very different than ours. They might stay up playing video games. Not that I'm recommending that, but staying up late playing video games with friends, especially on the weekends, they may stay up late and then sleep in later. Not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are having depression. Some of that's kind of normal, but I would definitely have the conversation with them and just share that, just kind of say, how are you feeling lately? Are you having any sadness? Let them know it's normal to kind of have a little bit different sleep hours than us adults. I know myself, I used to sleep in too a lot. And, but I think if they're not functioning well and like if they're not going to school, they're not eating, they're not doing kind of their normal things they usually like to do, then that might be something to talk to them about. Again, if you can, we don't want to come from a place of judgment that something's right or wrong. Some of it can be developmentally appropriate and normal. The sleeping late, prioritizing their friends, not always wanting to hang out with their family. That can be a really normal teen developmental stage. So you can also look up developmental stages and look at their age bracket. That can help too, just to kind of know what's normal and not normal. Those are great questions.
Thank you, Julie. And yes, please feel free. I know not in the chat itself, but you can private message me. I can ask if you choose to remain anonymous. Totally acceptable. No judgment zone here. But Julie, if you don't have anything else, I'd like to just share a couple more slides. And then if anybody else still has questions, please feel free to type into the chat. Thank you again, Julie, for today. Hold on, excuse me, I'm trying to, there we go. There you go. We thank you all for joining us today. Just wanted to share with you a reminder for next month. The last in our 3-part series is Understanding Anger and How to Manage It. It's going to be on Tuesday, March 16th. We will do 2 sessions as well, a Spanish speaking session that starts at 10. And our English language session is going to be at 11:30. We will be sharing the registration links at a future date. Please do stay connected with us. Follow us on social media if you are able to. Our handle is at LBUSD FRC on Instagram and on Twitter. When we do have the registration links active, we will definitely be emailing it to all our counterparts within the districts, our school counselors and principals as well. I have nothing else to share. I just wanted to thank you all for your time. If there are any more chats, Kim, if you see anything, no. Julie, we thank you once again for being with us today. As heavy a topic as it was, you know, it's kind of hard to stay on a time limit. I know we went a little over, but that's okay. With the questions that we had, we really appreciate everyone being here. This recording will be available at a future date. If you have any questions, feel free to email us or contact us. But that being said, thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.